Hello, I'm Maria Hall Brown, and this is LA Currents. Librarian, lab technician, accounting clerk, photographer, auditor, auto painter, tree surgeon. The employment opportunities for the city of Los Angeles are as diverse as the city itself. And the personnel department is there to help in all aspects of employment. I'm delighted today to be joined by the assistant manager of the personnel department, Aram Kouyoumdjian. I said it, I'm so happy. So nice to have you here.
Great to be here.
All right, as assistant general manager, you oversee a vast array of departments within this department. Public safety, backgrounds, medical services, Office of Workplace Equity. That sounds pretty broad and pretty intense. How do they all fit together and what are they?
It's quite the complement of divisions that I oversee, primarily dedicated to public safety hiring. So the public safety division and the background investigations divisions are responsible for hiring all the public safety related jobs in the city of LA. So that starts with police officer and firefighter, all the way to park ranger, animal control officer, or traffic officer. And that involves recruitment, testing, interviews, written tests, physical abilities tests, and the like, as well as a fully vetted background investigation in order to make sure that these candidates are suited for the very, very critical positions that they are trying to obtain.
Sure.
The medical services division handles medical screenings, occupational health for all of the city employees as well as potential or prospective employees. It also has a psychology section that does psych evaluations on police and firefighter candidates. Interestingly, they also handle medical care at the city's 3 jails. They have specific dispensaries within the jails, and they see to the medical needs of any arrestees. So that's medical services. And the Office of Workplace Equity is dedicated to ensuring equal opportunity within the city, within the employment realm, and it does so by investigating any complaints of equity violations that we get, but also developing policies and fostering a culture of inclusion within the city itself.
Has that policy or that procedure changed? I mean, are you looking at how the whole city plays out, making sure that the opportunities are available and that the opportunities for complete inclusion and equity is being established solidly? I mean, has that shifted somewhat in the last few months?
Of course, everything has shifted in the last year, right? So the pandemic and the racial justice movement have really shifted the paradigm of however everything gets done. So on the one hand, we've moved to virtual testing in order to protect candidates as well as ourselves from the pandemic, and that has created opportunities, right? It's created opportunities for resilience building. So if we should ever have similar situations, we have the means of guarding ourselves against it. And it's also opened up paths to access, right? So when you're doing things remotely or virtually, people don't have to travel great distances, take time off from work, or negotiate transportation issues in order to get to you. They can get to you virtually 24/7 in some cases, depending on what we're doing. As far as the equity issue is concerned, yes, that lens has broadened, and I'm proud to say that the city of LA has always had equitable policies,
right.
but it has brought new focus and attention on that particular subject matter. And this is something that I personally take quite to heart, being an immigrant myself, being the grandson of genocide survivors, as coming from Armenian ethnicity, having learned English as a second language. These are not just really abstract concepts to me, concepts of hybridity and inclusion and diversity. Those are very personal concepts for me. So when we do that kind of work, then it's something that I can immerse myself in very, very intimately. And what we've done is we've not only redefined policies, but we've also expanded the scope of our Office of Workplace Equity. We've expanded the staff. We are now engaged in doing a baseline cultural study in order to better understand the makeup of the workforce, and then that's going to be followed by an inclusion plan in order to expand the city's inclusion efforts. So what I mean by that is equal opportunity isn't just at the hiring stage. Of course, we want to give equal opportunity to all candidates. But once they're in the city, once they're in the city workforce, we want to make sure that they are in safe spaces, free of discrimination, free of retaliation or harassment, and they feel included and their voices are heard. And that promotes retention. And we also want to make sure that they have equal advancement opportunities, promotional opportunities. So it's really quite a broad approach to how we treat city employees. Now, in the public safety realm, this also comes into play when we're talking about screening out folks who can't really contribute to an inclusive environment, right? Of individuals who bring very strong biases to the job that really don't align with the city's values. And we've seen some of the problematic things that happen with that across the country. And that's one of the things that we try to avoid, both through our policies and through our background investigations, in order to make sure that city employees reflect the values of the city itself.
My immediate thought was like social media, because social media has been sort of almost like the thing that tells you something that you may not have heard or seen firsthand, but it gives you a direct light into someone's thought process or what their feelings are. Are you legally able to utilize social media investigation as part of your background investigation, or even your concerns if there's been some complaint? And how does that fit into the whole thing?
Obviously, the highest standard is for peace officers, like police officers, and then sworn officers like firefighters. So there are different tools available for each. So a police officer candidate goes through 7 steps of the hiring process. So that includes everything from a written test to an oral interview to a background investigation, but also a lie detector test, and also a medical exam, and also a psych exam. So there are various ways that we try to learn about the candidate, contacting not just their references, but their employers, their neighbors, whatever resources that we have. And you're quite correct, social media is very telling in terms of what people do. And there are certain allowances made for candidates who are applying for police officer positions, and we're going to be looking at expanding that in order to try to get a better understanding of the social media footprint of candidates and some of the things that they may have engaged in or admitted to there that perhaps they may either downplay or outright misrepresent to us.
And then when it comes to somebody wanting to become an employee of the city of Los Angeles, I would imagine that you should keep those things in mind in the future, that what you think politically or what you think may actually be shared at some point in time. So is there something that future employees of the city, or one person who may or want a position within the city, should keep in mind when thinking about if they're appropriate for a city position?
Absolutely. You should always be mindful of how you handle yourself on social media, and you can have differing political opinions. That's not a disqualifier. If you voted for X candidate or Y candidate, that's not something that we can legally sort of make our hiring decisions on. What we're looking for are instances of bias or extremism or disregard for the law or disrespect for other individuals or for diversity. So those are the indicators to us as to who would not be a suitable candidate for city employment.
All right, when it goes to actually being in the workplace, obviously, we've all had to take the sexual harassment classes. We've all had to be a little bit more aware of those whom we work with and making sure that it's a safe and comfortable environment. But sometimes there are issues that are potentially feeling as if they're threatening. And I know that that's part of one of your responsibilities. You're part of a whole team of people that work across the LA realm to make sure that people feel safe and comfortable. So what are some of the things that may be happening now after the pandemic? People are coming back to work, people may be in a hybrid work situation where they're home half the time or back in the office, or they may be back in the office, and we don't know what's happened in the last year and a half to people. So what are some of the things that the personnel department is looking for to make sure that people feel comfortable going back to work?
Yeah, we definitely want to ease that process of returning to work, and we understand that people are not coming to the same circumstances that they left a little over a year ago. Your colleagues at work may have changed. Some of them retired, some of them transferred, so you may be working with different people, or you got adjusted to a different sort of pace or work habits while telecommuting, and you're going to have to kind of get back to an office space where you may rightfully still be concerned about exposure as to who's vaccinated around you and who's not vaccinated around you. So we're very aware that those are potentially triggering issues for employees, and we do have a dedicated team that looks out for inappropriate responses to those situations. And it's called the Citywide Threat Assessment Team, and it's quite unique because it's interdisciplinary, and it has representatives from LAPD, from the Personnel Department's Psychology section, from the Threat Management Unit, as well as Security Services at LAPD. It has personnel folks who know about sort of the rules and regulations of the workplace, and it also has representatives from the city attorney's office. And when they do encounter situations that seem problematic to them or worrisome to them, there is a collaborative effort at investigating and assessing whether it's a true threat situation or simply an HR matter to be dealt with. And this is done in order to make sure that we are not missing signs of more problematic behavior.
Right.
So this is all it intends to be very, very preventative.
Okay, and you have a website that I know that is really helping with workplace equity and maybe some issues that may or may not be problematic within the workplace. It's My Voice LA. And what does that offer employees of the city if they have something they need to say but they might be concerned about going to a supervisor or something like that? So what does that site do for them?
My Voice LA is a reporting mechanism. So it's a portal where employees can register any kind of complaint relating to equity or equal opportunity. So the benefits of doing it through My Voice LA is, one, again, it's remote. You don't have to come down to the personnel department. You can do it on your own time. You can do it in the middle of the night if that's more conducive to your schedule. Secondly, it does allow the option of reporting anonymously. If somebody does not want to share their identity, then they can make the report anonymously, and we will proceed to investigate it. Obviously, sometimes we get complaints that have such limited information that it makes investigation very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So we appreciate however much information is shared, but the complainant does not have to disclose their name.
Now, you're an expert when it comes to law, when it comes to workplace employment law and civil rights law. How does that help you with what you're doing with the personnel department? Because you've represented the LA Unified School District. I mean, you really have this vast awareness of the law when it comes to employment. And what does that allow you to bring to the table here?
I do have many years of experience practicing law before I took this particular position. Obviously, this particular position is not a legal position, so I can't practice law within it, and I have to kind of always be mindful of that nuanced line. However, it does allow me to appreciate the legal aspects of whatever problem that I'm willing to solve and anticipate any issues that may come up. Also, in reaching out to the city attorney's office for any kind of advice or input, I can facilitate processing that much more quickly. First of all, they can use all the legalese they want with me and giving me their opinion. They are not going to throw me off. But I can also be the translator between our legal expert as well as my team, which is not comprised of lawyers. But we also have to be very mindful of the various legal issues that we have to comply with and navigate as we do our daily work.
You know, I mentioned earlier all those different categories, and that was just, you know, tip of the iceberg as to what the opportunities were within the city of Los Angeles to work as a city employee. You've obviously chosen that working for the city is a positive thing. What are some of the nice things about working for the city of Los Angeles that may not come top to mind? I mean, obviously a job is good, employment, you know, benefits are good, but what is special about the city of Los Angeles that people may not think about, but they should in terms of looking for employment?
There are two things that I personally appreciate a lot. You mentioned the benefits. There are a great number of benefits to working for the city, but aside from those, I appreciate the size. Frankly, I love the fact that it is a large organization, so there are a lot of opportunities. I mean, look at the number of subjects that we've touched on in just the last few minutes of all the things that I'm able to do. I don't make widgets all day, right? So people who are looking for different opportunities, there are upwards of 40 departments in the city, so literally almost any job that you can imagine is out there for you to get. We have over 1,000 job classifications that we hire for. Wow. So the opportunities are vast, and given that it's a large structure, the promotional opportunities are also there as well. So that's one thing that I really like about it. The other thing that really attracted me to public sector employment, first to LAUSD and now to the city, is the impact that you make. I mean, this is a place where you change the way things are done. So if you're not happy with how something's being done in your neighborhood or a particular city service is being provided, this is where we make the change. And when people have complaints about the way things are done, I always say, well, we're the agents of change, right? It's up to us to effectuate better systems. And not everything that we do is perfect, but I promise you, we come to work every day trying to make things better.
Well, I also know that during the pandemic, so many things had to shift. Everybody did, as you mentioned earlier, you know, go virtual and have this opportunity to do their position from home. Within the personnel department, I would imagine that some policies and procedures that were put into place worked very efficiently and probably will be kept that way. Did the personnel department incorporate things that they think they're going to keep even after people go back into the workplace?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the amount of activity that we migrated online is truly remarkable. And obviously we're going to keep a lot of that because it makes access so much easier. But we also found that in certain instances, productivity improved because especially for employees who have considerable commutes, well, they weren't spending 2-3 hours on the road each day, so just their exhaustion factor was less because they weren't having to come into a building far from their home every day. So in some instances, like I said, it did allow for opportunity, and we're definitely going to assess what has been an improvement and keep those, and whatever didn't work as well, then we're going to have to find new adjustments.
Where are we on the road to equity and inclusion when it comes to LA? I mean, how far along are we? You mentioned earlier that LA already had a very broad and open-minded and succinct path towards equity. Are we moving fast enough?
We're moving fast. I don't know if we'll ever move fast enough, right? Because there's always more that can be done, but we are doing a lot. Like I mentioned, aside from policy development, we have under our new Chief Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Officer, a whole bevy of initiatives. And it started with citywide implicit bias training that over 40,000 city employees have now taken just in the course of this past spring. I mentioned that she's going to be rolling out a citywide cultural study in order to kind of get a baseline of where we are in our inclusion efforts, and that's going to be followed by a whole host of additional training opportunities in order to foster inclusion. The fact that we're having these conversations with so much more regularity, the fact that we are retraining ourselves to look at things through the equity lens are themselves indicators of progress. And I'm proud of that work.
You said that you are the child of Armenian immigrants, and you are very sensitive to the situations that people might feel with implicit bias or very blatant bias. But added to that, you are very involved in theater, which I thought was such an interesting amalgamation of things. I mean, public service, a law degree, and also you formed a theater group. How do all those things work together, and what exactly is Vista Players?
Vista Players is a small theater company that I co-started when I was still living in Northern California, and now we have kind of resuscitated down here in LA. Theater really keeps me balanced. I mean, I think the fact that so many of my colleagues in the law feel very fatigued or burnt out. I never feel fatigued or burnt out because I always have had this balancing factor in my life. So that's what theater does for me. But the overlaps are a lot more obvious than may at first seem, although I'm contradicting myself by saying it's obvious. I started it when I was an attorney, and essentially a theater project, a directing project, is like a courtroom project, right? You're directing the action in a courtroom just like you're directing the action in a play. And in my current role, where I'm directing more operations, it's just like a theater piece which has to be delivered on time, on budget, for the public, right? And all of the initiatives that I do here have to be delivered on time, on budget, for public consumption. And it involves, much like theater, coordinating different groups of people. In a theater setting, it would be a cast and and designers and volunteers and stage crew and publicists and things like that. And here it's exam analysts and recruiters and background investigators and medical professionals. So they're all working toward a particular goal, a particular project that has to be completed and done well. And what I try to bring to it is the cohesive vision in order to get us all to the finish line.
You're like the perfect proponent for arts education for a number of reasons, because what you just demonstrated was an example of how arts education or arts participation adds an element of creativity that can be translated into all different kinds of sectors. Do you ever think about that?
I think all students should take a drama course at one point in their life, not necessarily because they want to be actors, but because it gives them so many skills that they can utilize in their life. Everything from text analysis to elocution and speech and poise and confidence and the ability to speak in public settings. All of these things come from that training, and you don't have to want to be in a production of Romeo and Juliet, but that course can really help you whether you're going into medicine or business or whatever field, because it's a very, very transferable skill.
Okay, I will skew back to the personnel department, I promise you, but I do actually want to ask you about Saroyan, because you
Yes.
actually not only are a fan, but have produced plays but you've written about him and for him. What is it about Saroyan, William Saroyan, that captured your attention, and what do you think he has to say that is applicable to today's life?
So Saroyan is one of the most famous Armenian American writers, and his heyday was probably in the 30s and 40s, where he was pretty much on par with John Steinbeck and Eugene O'Neill in terms of how revered he was and how honored, and he's a Pulitzer Prize winner. I was interested in him because of the theater connection, because of the Armenian connection, and when I was writing my master's thesis, those things sort of coalesced, and I wrote my thesis on his unpublished works, which then I ended up staging. What he has taught me is the idea of living life in the present and also trying to find the beauty in life. And my approach to work is always try to leave it a little better than I found it, because that needs to be my imprint, my legacy, right? So whatever we do in our lives, whether in our work or in our extracurricular activities, find something and make it better.
All right. So now, pulling that all back to the personnel department, which makes sense because you're dealing with people, and people have different needs, and people have different hopes, and people have different dreams. How does the personnel department at large support the employees of the city of Los Angeles? They have these protection mechanisms. Do they have education mechanisms? Do they have advancement mechanisms? What are some of the things that, as an employee of the city of Los Angeles, you can utilize the personnel department for?
So the personnel department really supports employees from pre-hire to retirement, right? So it's not just that we're hiring you, but we're bringing you on board. We have training divisions, so we do both mandated as well as voluntary trainings on a large scale. A lot of it through virtual resources and tools. We have support mechanisms through our HR specialists. We have promotional opportunities that go through us. We handle the benefits department, so all of the benefits choices that employees are making come through personnel. We have the Office of Workplace Equity in order to keep us safe in terms of equity violations. We have occupational safety that keeps us safe in terms of trip hazards and chemicals and things of that nature. We have the medical services division, as I mentioned, for screenings and things of that nature. So it's really a very, very broad effort to keep employees engaged and to keep employees content and happy with city employment up until the time they decide that, you know, they're going to go on to another chapter in their lives.
There is rumors out there in many, many, many sectors that there is a deficit of employees. Are there lots and lots of opportunities within the city right now? Is now a good time for somebody who might be looking for a career change or might be looking for employment that has security? Is this a good time to try to get a job with the city?
This is a good time because with some of the federal stimulus dollars, the city did a great job kind of reaching a budgetary stability, and so hiring is back, and we are very active in hiring. So anybody who's interested in city employment, where you do get the advantage of a number of benefits, satisfactory job, and making an impact, I mean, this is the place to be. Plus the weather.
Yeah, really. All right, you said 1,000 departments?
1,000 classifications.
1,000 classifications.
Different jobs.
Okay.
Yes.
So within those classifications, is there one particular realm that is looking more than others?
Public safety is always, very consistently hiring, but a lot of the classifications have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of employees. So in rec and parks, there are so many opportunities all the time. In sanitation, in the Department of Transportation, in general services, all of our larger departments have ongoing need because people are always retiring or transferring and looking at other opportunities. So it's vast. Like I said, whatever kind of job you want, we can help you with. And there's a job match program app on our website that you enter your interests, like if you like to work outdoors or if you have particular skills, and it'll match you with prospective city jobs.
That's like those little things you used to do when you were in high school. Do your aptitudes, and then they'll tell you what you should do
on a higher level. We have it.
That's amazing. All right, well, if people want more information about the vast array of things that your office does, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Our website is per.lacity.org, per.lacity.org, and that's a great way to kind of get familiarized with our process and learn about job postings and things like that, and it's very self-explanatory from there.
Okay, last thing. You hitting the boards anytime soon? You got any theatrical thing happening?
We're going to wade a little carefully about that because, there's a lot involved in doing that.
Well, very exciting. Please let us know. All right. Well, it was delightful to talk with you.
Pleasure
Thank you
to be
so
here.
much. All right. And that's a wrap on this LA Current.